What is going on, everybody? Welcome to the Fully Inflated Football Podcast. I am your host, Marcus Whitman, aka That Franchise Guy. We are back with what is going to be the first of many Monday evening reflective episodes. This is going to be the plan moving forward, is to do this show reflecting on the weekend's games once the NFL season starts, of course. Right now, it's preseason week 1. We're going to react. We're going to do it cautiously because you don't want to overreact to anything in the preseason. But this was the first action we got to see for pretty much every team outside of Denver and Atlanta who played last week. But it's exciting to see all of the offseason moves kind of first start to come together. So we're going to go through all of those games. And then we're going to open up the mailbag. Shout out to everyone that put your questions in. You guys just make things so much easier. I do have a couple quick plugs before we get into it. I'm going to probably upload this on YouTube for now, but the plan is, and really the hope for this podcast, is that we can make this my legit podcast, just like anything else out there. All those great podcasts out there where, you download it weekly. You have it set to download as soon as it comes out on your podcasting services. It's great that it's here on YouTube right now, but I need your guys' help to help grow this thing as a podcast, because I frankly don't really want to flood my YouTube feed with a bunch of podcasts if I'm going to start doing these 2 times a week. So here's how you can help. If you're watching this on YouTube, stop. Go to Spotify if you have it, iTunes if you have it, Google Play if you have it, Stitcher, I think that's free, maybe a cheap like $3 fee to get the app. Wherever you listen to podcasts, and if you're not, you should be. There's tons of great NFL podcasts out there. Probably shouldn't pump up my competition, but, if you want to be a smarter football fan, you should be listening to podcasts. I tell people that all the time, especially ones that want to get into scouting. It's just listen and take in everything, and podcasts are the easiest way to do that. So if you're watching this on YouTube, stop. Go listen to this podcast that was actually uploaded yesterday, because I'm going to upload it later. And then leave a review. However you do that on whatever platform you're listening to, drop a 5-star review, talk me up. I really appreciate it. I don't have any rewards for you right now, but that is going to be how I can help grow. You guys can help me grow this podcast. And then the other thing, if you want to support the show, other than leaving a review, use promo code FranchiseGuy on SeatGeek. If you're shopping for tickets, this is where I buy my tickets, because they got the best prices there. And you can save $20 with that promo code. You'll put a little money in my pocket as well. We can all win, and you can go have fun at the game for the best prices. So do that if you enjoy the show and want to support me and the podcast. So let's get into the preseason action. I'm going to start with what was probably the most exciting game of the week, and that was the Jets at the Giants, the Subway Series. And a lot to really talk about, mainly Daniel Jones, who lots of you are probably waiting to hear my reactions to how Daniel Jones looked. So let's get into that. We shredded the Giants for that pick, and I still think it was a terrible pick because I had a second-round grade on Daniel Jones. I thought Ed Oliver was a blue-chip defensive prospect that they could have had at 6, could have probably even had Daniel Jones at 17 if they didn't. Oh, well, I don't like how they handled their offseason. I still would not applaud Dave Gettleman for how he handled the Giants' offseason. That said, just like we said about Baker Mayfield around this time of the year, you can have your draft takes. Any analyst has their opinions. People hit, people miss all the time. And if I'm wrong about Daniel Jones, then good for Daniel Jones and good for Dave Gettleman. But it is time now to evaluate Daniel Jones, the NFL player. I evaluated him as a college prospect. I did not love what I saw. I had questions about his ability to use the entire field, mainly was my big concern, and just his processor. So what did we see in preseason week 1? Because it's now time to start evaluating Daniel Jones, the NFL player, and go from there. I was impressed by Daniel Jones. The thing that stood out the most about Jones was just kind of how confident and competent he looked, which is, take it with a grain of salt in the preseason, but in his first ever game, it was sharp. He was very decisive, got the ball out quickly and accurately, and with pretty good, force. Like, his arm looked pretty damn good. Now, my question of his ability to throw the deep ball accurately and use the entire field, we have yet to see that. I had the same questions about Baker Mayfield, though, and he made me, definitely look wrong about that. So his processor was what was most important for me. I think he was 6 for 6. Was really just bullet, touchdown. Like, it was just sharp. Now, these are vanilla defenses. This is literally like if you were calling Madden and you called like a nickel 4-2-5, cover 3, cover 2, and they're going to come out in the same look every time. That is pretty much what you're getting in the preseason. Like, these coaches are not going to show really anything. So if Daniel Jones, the guy who's been applauded for his kind of film study and understanding of the game, those are the most simple aspects of film study. So, if we're running a spot concept against a cover 3, which you'll know in the pre-snap that it's cover 3 because there's no disguises and everything's pretty simple after the snap. So if they're running a spot, it's pretty simple to be like, all right, I'll hold the linebacker here on the spot, I'll throw the flat. Or the linebacker charges to the flat, I'll throw the spot concept. Like, everything's very simple. As someone that's never even played quarterback, I could probably go out there and make most of the right reads, I think. So, obviously, we're going to have a lot more to evaluate with Daniel Jones. Once he gets in against real NFL action, Daniel Jones is not the only quarterback that looked good against these vanilla defenses, and certainly won't be the last. So, you're definitely impressed by what you saw by Daniel Jones. Still want to see him, have a counterpunch to disguised looks. We didn't really get a good look at his pocket presence, ability to manipulate pressure, or his vertical ability at all. But this is a step in the positive direction. It certainly could have been worse based on how we've talked about Daniel Jones. So he looked like a competent player. And Eli went 3 and out. So a thumbs up to Daniel Jones. We'll see how it goes. I'm cheering for him. I hated the pick. I wouldn't have made it myself. But if it works out, I am more than happy to say that I was wrong, and good on Daniel Jones for proving everyone wrong, because I wasn't the only one that thought that. And any good scout is ready to be wrong. And any good analyst will react to new information as they go. So let's talk about the other quarterback, Sam Darnold, not Eli Manning. I don't want to talk about Eli Manning. But Sam Darnold just looked sharp. The biggest thing I noticed, other than just a really nice off-platform throw, which is why I liked him so much, is he's probably one of 5 to 8 quarterbacks in the NFL that can just throw a strike no matter what position his body is in. He has what I call a C-ball, hit ball arm, in that it really doesn't matter what platform he's throwing on. He can put the ball anywhere on the field at any time, which is such a threat. And that's his best trait. Now, what his weakness was as a rookie and really coming out of college was processor after the first or second read, making smart decisions. He had some of those Jameis Winston tendencies, I guess, where he might get a little panicky or just try to do a little too much. And one thing I noticed, and one thing I had said really about the Le'Veon Bell signing, is that, it's what he brings to the table as a runner is nice, but what is really going to help out here is developing some better tendencies in the check down game, in the screen game, and being a little safer with the football. And we didn't see Le'Veon Bell, but what we did see was Jamison Crowder open up a really nice first down conversion for Sam Darnold. His first couple targets were covered up. In the past, it was a play where he probably would have started scrambling and then maybe forced a ball downfield. Jamison Crowder opened up right in front of his eyes on what seemed to me like a reactionary route after his original route was covered up. And he got open on a crosser and converted for a 10-yard completion. And that's the kind of easy stuff that can really help develop some healthy tendencies for Sam Darnold. Now, he was sharp. He moved the team down. Their jerseys looked sharp. Like, the Jets just have some good energy right now. And you look at that defense now. I was just editing their interior defensive linemen, actually, and that front is low-key, if Quinnen Williams can be that elite interior pass rusher and a good run defender, that defensive line is going to be quite possibly the best in the NFL. There's a lot of good D lines out there, but you've got Leonard Williams, who is a superstar in the making that just has not really had the help around him really to really break out. He now has another potential superstar next to him, so you got a great duo. But it's not just them. You've got the Fort Hays State kid, Nathan Shepard. He's not really a kid. He's like a 25-year-old rookie last year, but he kind of came on late last year. He can play. You have the nose tackle there, Steve McClendon, a good run defender. You got Henry Anderson, who low-key had like 50 pressures last year in what really should have been a breakout season. They have 3 interior guys that can be 50-plus pressure guys, and that is awesome. Now, they don't really have much of an edge rush, but that interior defensive line is going to be stout. And then you look towards the secondary, their linebackers is where you get excited because they signed C.J. Mosley, but Blake effing Cashman. How many times did I scream during the draft that this is going to be the guy that we look back in 5 years and say, how did this guy fall to the 5th round? Was it injury concerns? What? His college tape was neck and neck for me with Devin Bush and Devin White, who were both top 10 picks. He's just as athletic. He's actually bigger than Devin Bush and a little taller and skinnier than Devin White, but he was one of the smartest linebackers for multiple seasons in the Big Ten. I did a lot of Big Ten games for, I said this on the podcast last week. I just watched a lot of Blake Cashman for PFF, and he popped. I was like, this is one of the best defensive players in the country. And he went in the 5th round. 5th round. I did a prospect primer. I had him in the 1st. And I was, at that time, had him above Devin Bush. So, he's already playing with the first team, and he comes out, he forces a fumble. Now, he wasn't perfect, but those are those playmaking instincts you're going to see, and I think he's going to weed out some of those maybe inconsistencies he had that week in terms of being in the right place at the right time all the time. But, man, I am so excited to watch this Jets team because I'm a big Sam Darnold guy. I now got a guy on the defensive side of the ball in that team in Blake Cashman. And I want to see someone compete with the Patriots. I don't think the Jets have any chance of really winning that division unless injury really strikes the Patriots this year. But, man, it's going to be a fun team. The Bills aren't going to suck either. So that division finally, hopefully, going to be a little more competitive and fun to watch. Now, the Giants' defense, I did have one more note here, and then we'll move on. We're spending a lot of time on this game, but it really was the most interesting one to me. To me, it just looked a little dysfunctional. A lot of moving pieces on that side of the ball. They spent that 1st-round pick on a nose tackle, which isn't really a need for them anyway because they have Damon Harrison, who's really a true nose tackle, not much of a pass rusher. They have B.J. Hill, who was a good 3rd-round pick last year that actually really stepped up after Damon Harrison got traded away. They had guys already, and they spent a 1st-round pick on another guy. The linebacker room sucks. They don't have an edge presence at all. They have all these young D-backs that I do like, but rookie corners are just really unpredictable. So, that Giants defense to me just paired with an offense that's not going to be very good. The Giants are certainly in the conversation for the worst team in the league, unless Daniel Jones can be the guy that he was on that first drive and start all season. But I don't think anyone's expecting that to happen. So let's move on. The next game I have is Houston at Green Bay. And I'm going to try to maybe pick up the pace a little bit. We'll see. Houston, not a lot of takeaways. Their depth really stinks. I just didn't see a whole lot of depth on that team at all, which we all knew. But it showed. And Green Bay kind of whooped them until late in the 4th quarter. One note was Joe Webb at quarterback for the Texans actually looked pretty good. He was throwing a really nice ball for a converted college receiver or converted former NFL receiver that was a college quarterback, something like that. He threw 42 passes. The Packers couldn't tackle him. He looked just spry. I think he single-handedly won the backup quarterback job there in that game. And he matches Deshaun Watson's skill set, which is with his mobility. Nothing else really to talk about on Houston's side of the ball. Lonnie Johnson kind of got beat a couple times. I know he was a guy that was talking trash because these two teams had a joint practice. So Rodgers and Bakhtiari were kind of going at Lonnie Johnson, their 2nd-round pick, lengthy corner out of Kentucky. That I didn't like that pick. So kind of fun to see him kind of get picked apart. Now, I do have a couple notes on the Packers. Number one is Montravius Adams. So this team obviously cut Mike Daniels a few weeks ago, which was a big surprise. But those that have followed this Packers team closely know that the interior defensive line is not an issue for this Green Bay team. I don't know, outside of, maybe Pittsburgh. I don't think there's a team that's developed interior defensive line as well as Green Bay. Starts with Kenny Clark, who was one of the 5 best interior defensive linemen in the league last year. But, obviously Mike Daniels developed. Dean Lowry is a freak of an athlete that this team has slowly developed. Just paid him a nice contract the day before they cut Mike Daniels. And then Montravius Adams was a 3rd-round pick 2 years ago, was a great athlete coming out of the SEC. When you look at the SEC defensive linemen in the NFL, it is stupid. Like, all of the good interior defensive linemen are out of the SEC. Like Geno Atkins, Georgia. You've got Fletcher Cox, Mississippi State. Chris Jones, I think, was also Mississippi State. Really the top 10 guys. I think 8 or 9 of them are out at SEC. And not all of them were first-round picks. Some of them were these third-round picks like Montravius Adams. Now, what I'm getting at is Adams did not do much as a rookie, and he didn't do much early last season, but he really came on after, Kenny Clark and Mike Daniels both missed the last 4 games of the year, and Montravius Adams was potentially this team's best defensive player for the last quarter of the season. And all of the reports out of camp is that this guy is wrecking dudes. And he comes out, starts in the game, and was wrecking a really bad Houston defensive line. But he is definitely making a statement as a breakout player this year. All of the signs are pointing towards him really stepping up this year. They cut Mike Daniels, his trajectory. He has the pedigree as a really good athlete coming out of the SEC for a team that's developed these interior guys. So I look at Montravius Adams as a guy that could really, and I'm not talking about emerge as a starter, I'm talking about getting up and being a potentially elite defensive player, especially next to Kenny Clark, who's just a monster. So I really don't think Green Bay is going to miss Mike Daniels all that much, because they have Dean Lowry, who can really play, and then they have those 2 edge guys that can really play inside on 3rd down and offer what Daniels offered as a pass rusher in Zadarius Smith and now Rashawn Gary. So Green Bay really is not going to miss Mike Daniels. That's why they cut him. And that's all I really have to say about... Actually, that's not true. I have one more note here. Oren Burks was a linebacker for Green Bay. I did my deep dives on this team, and I had Green Bay ranked tied for last at linebacker, and I'm not a Blake Martinez guy. He pads his tackle numbers after he gets beat. I think him and Kyle Rudolph, both in this NFC North, are the most overrated players in the NFL. Now, and I said about Blake Martinez because he's stiff. He can't cover. And he's not even a very good run defender. Like, he gets good tackle numbers, but he very rarely has stops in the backfield. He's just not a very instinctive player at all. He's smart, but he doesn't have those instincts. Doesn't create a lot of turnovers either. So they were already really struggling at linebacker because Blake Martinez is all they had. And Oren Burks was a 3rd-round pick. Really the first time in about 5 years, other than Blake Martinez, that this team spent a top 100 pick, and Blake Martinez probably wasn't even, a top 100 pick in the draft on the linebacker position. The really systematic ignorance of that position has been a big downfall of this Packers team, in my opinion. Now the one guy that looked like he might be able to cover comes out, and he, shoulder, he's done for the year. He's out for the season. So Green Bay is just effed at linebacker. They have a bunch of white dudes behind Martinez that are all undrafted guys. Ty Summers is fast, but he's a 7th-round pick. He's a special teamer. And this team, yet again, seems like they're going to sit on their heels and hope that one of these guys can turn into a competent linebacker and just stay blind about the fact that Blake Martinez can't cover a freaking nosebleed. So, I think the Packers are going to take a lot of strides in a lot of regards, but this is a linebacker position that is becoming more and more important in the modern game, and this Packers team is really going to suffer in the short to intermediate passing game because of Blake Martinez and nobody else. And it's too late now. You can't sign Jordan Hicks now. You can't pick Zach Brown off the open market like the Eagles did now. They're on teams. You got to have depth in this league, and this team ignored this position for another season. I like what Gutekunst has done with this team, but the systematic, philosophical, just literal ignorance of the linebacker position, like by definition, ignoring the linebacker position, it blows my mind. It's one of the most astounding things in all of the NFL to me. How an NFL team can literally say, we're good, about an entire position group. They literally haven't done anything to that position. Like, no free agents, no trades, no high draft picks, nothing. Burks was the only guy, and now he's gone. So that's too bad for Green Bay and that defense that did have some promise. Now they're going to have the worst linebacker room in the NFL, almost guaranteed. So next we have the Titans at Eagles. And I had some takeaways here. Number one was just Marcus Mariota. I'm done. I'm out. I'm out on Marcus Mariota. I tweeted it yesterday. I said Blake Bortles, Ryan Tannehill, Marcus Mariota. And it was, it's been a very long process, right? He came into the draft. I liked him. Very slowly, I'm like, all right, this guy's Alex Smith. He's Ryan Tannehill. I keep telling it to Titans fans. He's fine. System quarterback. He's a good athlete that doesn't know when to run. Like, all this stuff. Keep telling it to Titans fans year after year after year. Said they were going to go 9-7 last year. They went 9-7. Like, I'm just out. I'm out on Marcus Mariota. It's time to move on, Tennessee. It's not going to work this year. That's my statement. It was, we've been slowly entering this line. Heading towards this line. It was a 3rd and 8. Adam Humphries, new free agent signing. They're giving him yet another weapon here. They've tried so many times to get this guy weapons. So here he is. Yeah, it's preseason, but this will translate. It's a covered Adam Humphries, but he's got about a 2 foot, 2 feet of separation. 3rd and 8, about a 10-yard out. Mariota throws it over his head. It's been the theme of his career is he doesn't make consistently the big-time plays to convert 3rd downs. Either he runs too early or he doesn't run at all, like he just can't sense pressure, doesn't know when to run, or he'll take the check down too early. And you end up going 3 and out. And I'm out. I'm tired of it. I did the same thing with Ryan Tannehill for 3 years. Blake Bortles. Now, he was an extreme situation, but it's over. I'm calling it over before the season even started. I'm sorry, Titans fans, that I'm not giving him a chance. I know you don't like me because I don't like Mariota anymore, but I'm tired of thinking he's going to fix this thing. And to see it happen with the guy they signed in the first week, like the first big throw he has to make of the season, it's like, here we go again. Here's your Alex Smith quarterback that's not surrounded with enough talent to get a Super Bowl. Yeah, he might win 9 or 10 games and sneak you into the playoffs, but what good is that? So that's my takeaway from that game on the Titans side. There was some things for the Eagles. Sudfeld did look pretty good. This is a guy that Eagles fans like to hype up. I make fun of every NFL fan for buying too much into their backup quarterbacks' preseason performances, but he was making some really nice big-time throws. Not simple 6-yard slants. He's making off-balance throws. You can see the arm strength. He's faster than you would expect. Now, he did suffer a broken arm or something. Broken wrist, maybe. It looks or sounds like he's going to be out for the rest of the preseason. Maybe he's not, but that's just too bad. If anything happened to Carson Wentz, they're probably done. You may have had a little hope because Sudfeld could be a Nick Foles type, or even better maybe. But but it does seem like Sudfeld will be able to get back at some point. So maybe they could have a late season run. But he looked pretty good. And then Arcega-Whiteside, I learned, as it's said, was pretty much as advertised to me. And we talked about this last week that I actually like David Sills better than J.J. Arcega-Whiteside. And I never doubted that Arcega-Whiteside can be a great contested catch target. He had a really nice catch in this game. And they were using him a lot as that 4th wide receiver with all their guys kind of sitting out. But you also could really see how slow he accelerates, not a ton of separation. He's a red zone threat. He's a 3rd down target. I'm never going to see J.J. Arcega-Whiteside as anything more than that. But he did make some nice contested catches, which was just as advertised to me. And then here's the big one, Andre freaking Dillard. Like, how did he fall to the Eagles in the 20s of this draft? He looked like a 10-year All-Pro, shutting down, obviously, backups, but his technique as a pass blocker is flawless. He's going to be an all-pro player for the Eagles, and they stole him. They absolutely stole him. Many teams that needed him, the Minnesota Vikings, the Giants in their own division, the Texans by not, trading up and letting the Eagles get in front of them. All those teams are going to regret not having Andre Dillard. It's that simple to me. The dude is going to be a superstar tackle in the NFL. He was, I kept saying it during the pre-draft, that he was the best pass blocking prospect in at least 5 years. It was that clear to me that he had everything to be an elite pass blocker in the NFL. Now, his anchor is questionable, and we'll see how he holds up against like Khalil Max, J.J. Watts, who have that elite power. But most pass rushers don't have that type of power. Most of them will rely more on that speed to the edge, and Dillard is going to be one of the best in the league at that kind of matchup. He's also not much of a run blocker either, but the Eagles are smart, and they know that doesn't matter all that much. So that's my takeaway from that game. So next we have Indianapolis at Buffalo. I'm just going to be honest, nothing really captured me in this game. I try to have as many takes as I can. Nothing really captivated me here. It sounds like Andrew Luck's shoulder situation might be worse than we had hoped. Now, we've said that in the past. We'll see how that all plays out. Jacoby Brissett was kind of Jacoby Brissett. I am excited to watch Buffalo's defense, but no one really captured my attention in this game. Ed Oliver didn't do a whole lot. Tremaine Edmonds hoping to have a big year in his sophomore season as a young player. But yeah, not a whole lot of captivation going on in that game. Let's move on. We got Washington at Cleveland. All of the attention for me was on Cleveland's side of the ball. I know Dwayne Haskins was in there. Now, he had a bit of a rocky start. He threw a couple picks, but he also had his moments as well. Haskins showed enough to be encouraged. I don't see why you wouldn't start him early on. He showed really nice arm talent, ability to kind of make throws on the move. I'm not going to knock him for one of his picks. He just kind of was hoping his receiver was going to be in the right place. It seemed like a miscommunication. But on the Cleveland side of the ball, like, all of the hype for this team was really matched. Like, all of the hype pieces, too. Like, you got Baker just looking like a better version of Drew Brees, like, honestly. Throwing just rockets, again, against vanilla defenses, but he looks awesome. Fired up, goes down like 6 for 6, touchdown, just absolute bullets. One interesting thing about Baker that I kind of noticed last year, and you could see this in the Texans game that they really keyed on this last year, he really throws slants with confidence. Let me put it that way. And he gets away with it because he's so accurate. He throws with so much anticipation. He's got so much zip in those short passes that it might just be unguardable. But it was against the Texans. And I think they had three interceptions by linebackers. It's almost predetermined based on what Baker's seeing, where he's going with the football. So if you can key in on that, it might be a rare situation where I actually believe that getting more tape on a young quarterback can help you out. I doubt that leads to much, but it's just an observation that is definitely his go-to, is like a 3-step drop slant to a highly anticipatory receiver coming open off a break. And it's really hard to guard, but it is something that is defendable. So just a note there, but Baker just looked awesome. Myles Garrett was unblockable when he was in there. He's gonna blow up this year. Greedy Williams. It took one preseason game. I called this one of the steals of the draft. He fell because he can't tackle. Seriously? What is this? 1960? Oh, he's really fast, but, he's not very physical. I want a corner that can tackle. I'm really worried about his ability to tackle. Yeah. We want to stop the run. He might be miles better than any other prospect in terms of his ability to run with Julio Jones or DeAndre Hopkins, but he can't really shed a block and, be a consistent tackler. Well, he came up and stopped 2 runs in this game. Didn't seem to be afraid of it. Looked willing. You don't pass on an elite cover prospect because he can't tackle. Not only does it not move the needle, like even if he did struggle as a run defender, even if he did struggle, it's not going to move the needle. If he misses 4 tackles on the season, it's not going to change the scope of your season. More likely than not, you're going to have a safety there to clean up after they get 4 or 5 yards. If he locks down 20 deep balls a season more than the next prospect, you can't seriously tell me you're passing on him because he had a couple missed tackles in college. But then, on the other hand, tackling is the most easily coachable just skills. You just got to coach him to be willing. Inspire the guy a little bit. And they've done that already. He's gonna be a star corner next to Denzel Ward, another player that just some of these old-minded front offices, like the Raiders. I like Trayvon Mullen. I was higher on him than most. I was one of few analysts that had him going early second round. No way in hell would I have even considered him over Greedy Williams. He doesn't sniff what Greedy Williams brings to the table in coverage. He had a really nice pick in this game. Down the field, by the way. And was tackling. So Greedy was a takeaway. And then Mack Wilson was another player. Now, I wasn't super high on Mack Wilson, but certainly would have thought about him in the second or third round. If I'm Green Bay, who we talked about earlier, how do you not draft Mack Wilson in the 4th round? I think they trade away all their picks. But how do you not move up and get a guy like that that's falling? He came out and was dominant. I questioned the linebacker they took in the 2nd round, but when I did their draft grade, I was like, if you flip these 2 players, I'd give them both A's, right? I would like both of those picks. And that's a position in need. They cut Jamie Collins. I've always said Joe Schobert is overrated, and it's Mack Wilson is already looking like a better player than Joe Schobert in terms of coverage. So the Browns are really making me a believer, and I've made fun of their culture, not even made fun of. I just questioned their culture issues, and I still think those could be a deal down the road with a rookie coach. But the talent on this team is dumb. So the Browns kind of made a statement. The Chargers at the Cardinals. It was a fun game to watch. The Chargers running back situation, they're fine. Austin Eckler fumbled on the goal line. That's not really his strength. I think they'll probably be putting Justin Jackson in there in those situations if Melvin Gordon does not return. But Eckler, other than that fumble, was phenomenal. Explosive, making guys miss, running between the tackles, catching the ball. He looked great. Justin Jackson can definitely play. That was kind of my takeaway for the Chargers, is they're going to be fine at running back. And then Kyler Murray was as advertised, by me at least. I mean, I don't know if there's a player I've been more excited to watch in the NFL, because this guy is just stupid good. His arm, he threw an out, like a 10-yard out technically, but he was on the far hash. And the corner was sagging off, and looked over after the throw, was like, oh, that little guy can throw that ball? Shit. Oh no, we are in trouble. If he can complete that pass. Yeah, just game-changing type of player. He was eluding pressures that he had no business eluding, and then completing passes down the sideline, looked like a faster Aaron Rodgers. He's going to be a special player if they can continue to put talent around him. I think he's going to be able to survive as a rookie. The question is, can they have a good coaching stability moving forward? Can they continue to beef up that defense that has some pieces but does need a few more units, and then hopefully get him a little bit better of an offensive line? But he's going to be so fun to watch. So he looked good. Atlanta at Miami. Josh Rosen was kind of made some nice throws, had some moments where he was just under pressure and couldn't really do much. Preston Williams was the storyline here, and we really, a lot of our big sleepers, I guess, heading into the draft, I would say the top 5 guys that we said were sleepers was Blake Cashman, was Andre Dillard, was Kyler Murray, was really the guys we're talking about here from the first week of the preseason. It was a good pre-draft for me. Greedy Williams And obviously I'm choosing to talk about those guys, but they definitely were the storylines of those games in some ways. But we did a prospect primer on Preston Williams. And, he was a guy that had off-the-field issues, but I said second to third round, maybe worth a shot. Like, he's got a ton of talent. Looks like A.J. Green out there. He goes undrafted because of his off-the-field concerns. Miami throws a dart, and it's already paying dividends. He's looking like he's going to win the starting job over Devontae Parker and Kenny Stills, maybe. I don't know. Like, he looks really good. Made 3 or 4 catches in that game that most receivers will never make on an NFL field. So that's what you get excited about. Atlanta, sorry, I don't have any takeaways. This has nothing to do with my perennial hate for Matt Ryan. I think Atlanta is actually going to be pretty good this year. I just didn't have any takeaways. They just kind of were what I expected, I guess. So sorry if you've gotten this far and were hoping to hear me talk about Atlanta. I just didn't have much to say there. Denver at Seattle. This was the story from this game was the Drew Lock and Paxton Lynch battle, because this was the team that cut Paxton Lynch, Denver, and Drew Lock, the replacement for Paxton Lynch, is that developmental prospect. And it was kind of punch for punch. Drew Lock had his moments, I thought, but also really showed that he's not ready, to be honest. You could see the arm talent, you could see the accuracy, but I'm going to start calling it lock pockets, because I've got worries about his pocket presence. Some of the worst you're going to see, just obvious edge rushers screaming off the edge and not stepping up, holding the ball over his shoulder where it's easily going to get strip sacked. He's got to find a way, and that's usually something that does not develop. Very rarely do you see that develop. So that's very concerning to me. He looked a lot like he did in college, where when he got the time, he could make every throw, but there was concerns about really, what's going to happen when everything's not dialed up in front of him. And in this game, it was more the same, where he really didn't create a whole lot to me. And then Paxton Lynch was just fun to watch. Now, he still sailed some balls. His first throw was miserable. But once he got in a rhythm, he actually looked pretty good in this Seattle system that was running a lot of play action for him, setting up his mobility just like they do for Russell Wilson. And you can even say the same thing about Geno Smith. I think Seattle can resurrect Paxton Lynch's career as a good, serviceable backup here. I'm excited to see him keep playing here. He had like a 50-yard run where he looked super fast. And he does have a good arm, but he did look at times like a receiver out there playing quarterback. But just the perfect scheme fit here. It's the perfect example of how scheme matters. I think they're going to keep Paxton Lynch on that team just because the upside as a backup is pretty high. And then another takeaway was Seattle, the young studs here. A lot of promise here, because this isn't the deepest roster in the league, right? They lost Frank Clark, but they didn't have a huge, exciting free agency, but they had a lot of draft picks. So to get some guys here that can kind of step up this year in positions of need. So Ugo Amadi, slot corner. I really like this pick. He's like a 4th-round pick. Now, normally this team shies away from undersized defensive backs, but I think they found a guy here in Ugo Amadi. To me, just kind of reminds me of Desmond King. Really great ball skills, returning kicks early on in his career here, a slot corner. I think he's going to start there in the slot. He looked really good. He could be the next great 5'9" slot corner. Jazz Ferguson was dominant in this game. A receiver out of, Louisiana Tech or something. Big-bodied, athletic guy. He's going to compete, I think, at some point with the guys on that roster. Mainly, I don't know if Jamon Brown is still there. I think he is. But DK Metcalf wasn't bad. You saw the speed, but you also saw the slow starting, not much, quickness. But Jazz Ferguson, big-bodied dude, perfect scheme fit as a deep threat. He's got the size to block, so he really stepped up. And then John Ursua is the slot guy behind Tyler Lockett, because this is kind of something I've talked about. They have all these deep threats at wide receiver, but they don't have those quick-hitting route guys. Pretty much every receiver outside of Tyler Lockett is this big, stiff guy. If they need a 3rd and 3, they don't need 12 yards. They need guys that can get open early after Tyler Lockett. It doesn't have to be anyone special, but if anything happens to Lockett, you need someone that can do that. John Ursua showed some of that quickness, made some nice plays in this game. He looks like he can be a nice backup slot receiver. And then Jamar Taylor, he's not young. He's played for a couple teams, but he looked kind of like his old self. He was, at a time, the best corner there for Cleveland, and he very quickly was dismissed from Cleveland and then didn't have a great time in Arizona. It wasn't terrible, but Seattle takes, in their terms, a chance on him because they normally, like I said, for an outside corner, want 6 feet or taller. Taylor's like 5'11", but he's a good player. They took a chance on him. He's out there wearing number 8, really competing for a spot on this roster, and he had a really good start to his preseason, and I've said that that's a weakness for Seattle, is that outside corner. You know, Griffin is a fun player. He's very fast, but has had a lot of ups and downs. They had Trey Flowers last year, was good in that scheme, but a converted safety with some stiffness. Like, they could use a good veteran there at corner, whether he starts or not, and Jamar Taylor looks like he might be that guy. New England at Detroit. Again, sorry, Detroit. Just like Atlanta, it feels like I hate on these teams, but nothing really captivated me on Detroit's side of the ball. I do think they're going to be pretty solid. Like, that defense is going to be pretty good. But I unfortunately just didn't have a lot of takeaways in that game. New England side of the ball, Tom Brady got a 1-year extension. I won't dive into that, but it was intriguing that they weren't, reinforcing that Tom Brady's going to continue playing after the season for the Patriots. He is set to be a free agent after this year. He's going to have to, in my opinion, kind of halt the regression because year after year he has gotten worse. All of his stats are down. I'm not normally a stats guy, but the eye test, you can tell. You see the Super Bowl. You see the Pittsburgh game last year. Like, he just is not old Tom Brady. Now he's still elite, but at some point, when does that arm strength become a liability for him to the point that he can't do all the things that he's used to doing, just like what happened to Peyton Manning? Because he's had regression with that arm, but it hasn't been so extreme that it's prohibited him. But at some point, it's going to happen. Father Time is undefeated, so New England's kind of buying some insurance for themselves. And if Bill Belichick doesn't think he can play at the end of the year, they're going to have to find another answer. And is that answer Jarrett Stidham, who was a 4th-round pick out of Auburn, a guy that at a time had a 1st-round pedigree? Some comparisons to Tony Romo with mobility, good arm strength. Ironically, that was Jimmy Garoppolo's comparison as well. And he looked good. First week of the preseason, so pump the brakes, but he looked good. Could be the next Tom Brady, so to speak, as a late-round pick that turns into a starter here. And then Jacoby Myers kind of breaking out there. And N'Keal Harry's been a little quiet, not a ton of buzz about him, their 1st-round pick, but that's been a big motto for New England is it doesn't really matter where you get drafted. Like, if you're a guy like Jacoby Myers, you can break into the starting lineup quick and early if you're better. And he was a very productive player at NC State. Him and Kelvin Harmon allowed Ryan Finley to really, frankly, get drafted. I think Finley's a good player, but I don't know if he gets drafted if he didn't have the production he had thanks to these receivers. And Jacoby Myers was the slot guy. And we know this Patriots offense puts a premium on getting open early, being able to run after the catch. Jacoby Myers was one of the best prospects in the class at that. So you definitely got to keep an eye on him. And that's all I have for that game. Rams at Oakland. A couple takeaways on the Raiders side of the ball. The hype for this team is dumb. It's not hilarious to me. It's not over the top. It's literally just stupid. Watching the Raiders coverage of this game, it's like a fluff piece, man. They're like, oh, here's the new stadium. We got all this elite 1st-round additions. We made all these free agency signings. The whole broadcast is about how good everyone looks. And I know that that's most of these. You're not going to rip on anyone. But there's no mention, really, of the fact, like, they don't have an exterior pass rush. They're treating Clelin Ferrell and Arden Key like they're going to be this elite duo. The coverage here was miserable. And they act like LaMarcus Joyner is going to come in here and revolutionize just this whole defense. And, I couldn't count on my hands how many times they said hope and promising future and all this stuff. And it's like, it was almost painful to watch because this team is not going to be good. They really are not going to be good. It's a train wreck right now. They didn't even mention the fact that Antonio Brown, or this might have been before all this news, but that's looking like a disaster. To me, their draft picks were not high reward at all. Like, Furl looked fine. Jonathan Abrams, to me, watching Hard Knocks, he seems like a loser. Like, I would not want him to be my teammate. He's just annoying. Like, I don't know who watched Hard Knocks, but he, lit up a dude in a no-pads practice. John Gruden comes over to yell at him. He doesn't shut up, and I like players like that. But, Derek Carr took him out to dinner, and it was really awkward the way he was, pointing, basically poking Derek Carr. He's like, "You're so rich, I'm going to order everything on the menu. Your kids don't have to work a day in your life." And Derek Carr just kind of was laughing at him, but, definitely giving off the vibe, "All right, dude, I get it. I make a lot of money. Can someone else have the floor? Are you just going to talk about how much money I make? Yeah, I'm the quarterback. I make money. That's why I'm taking you out for dinner. You don't need to point it out all the time." And everyone was just kind of, annoyed by the guy. I am not high on this Raiders team at all. I think there's a more likely than not chance that we're talking about who are the Raiders, what quarterback are the Raiders drafting with the first overall pick in next year's draft. I think that's more likely than Derek Carr being the starter next year. Now, it might be Nate Peterman, because Nate Peterman looked good. Seriously, Nate Peterman is doing all the things I've said for the last almost year and a half. He's a competent NFL quarterback. He's not going to be a starter. He could be a Nick Foles level starter, a bridge quarterback at his ceiling probably. But Nate Peterman's a good backup quarterback in this league. In a terrible situation, but he's mobile. He has a plus arm. He's got a really good arm. He's not particularly inaccurate. He just needs to get his confidence back. And he was getting his confidence back. And that was fun to watch for the Raiders. And I'm sorry if I'm just bashing this team, but I think what I'm getting at is that there is this driving force of optimism, which is fine. They are trying to rebuild. They've made some decent moves. They're a better team this year than they were last year. But if you're a casual Raiders fan and you're watching this and you don't really understand the big picture of the NFL, this team is a disaster. And a couple free agency signings, they were talking I left this out. They said that Trent Brown is the best right tackle in the NFL. He's not even the best right tackle in his own division, because you got Mitchell Schwartz there for the Chiefs. And they're talking about Tyrell Williams like he's going to come in here and be this elite receiver on top of Antonio Brown. No. No, they overpaid for guys because they were so desperate for talent at those positions. It doesn't make them great just because you paid them to be great. Tyrell Williams, I think I have better hands than Tyrell Williams. So, it's fine if you want to be optimistic and say that things can get better here, but the optimism around this team is that they're going to compete for the effing Super Bowl, and it's not going to happen. This team is going to blow. So that was my takeaway from that game, was watching that home broadcast for the Raiders. It's I get that you're trying to generate hype and have a good show, but can we cool it on saying that this team is going to be really good this year? Man. All right, we got a few games left here. Jacksonville at Baltimore. Why is Nick Foles not playing? Is this another act? Aaron Rodgers isn't playing this week. Tom Brady's not playing this week. Why should our franchise quarterback play? We're good to go. Stop it. Nick Foles has got to play. He's got to get reps with these new team. He's got to get in a rhythm with this team. He is not a good enough quarterback to be sitting out in the preseason. Kirk Cousins was playing. Dak Prescott was playing. Who else? All those. Derek Carr was playing. Right? Why is Nick Foles not playing, Jacksonville? They literally, to me, are acting like it's not going to hold up. How long can you put on a show that Nick Foles is this great quarterback that doesn't need to play in a preseason game? Knock it off. And then they came out so flat. Jacksonville could be really bad this year. I'm not buying anything. Their defense will be fine, but the second Nick Foles shows his true colors, that team is going to crumble. If Yannick Ngakoue started holding out again, it wouldn't surprise me because he has got to be pissed. They're paying Blake Bortles more than they're paying him this year, and now they're paying Nick Foles about 23 times what he's making this year. That's not going to go well in that locker room, especially after you've sold it like Nick Foles is the freaking savior, and he's not. And then Lamar Jackson on the other side of the ball. This is like the preseason game of Marcus hatred. Now, I don't hate Lamar Jackson. I just don't think he can throw a football accurately. And there was a play in this game. I physically laughed out loud, and I tweeted about this, but you can't make this stuff up. I'm watching him throw inside the pocket. He's about to get hit, and he tries to force a ball. And he's throwing to the tight end in the flat is what it looked like. You can't know for sure, but pretty much looked like he was throwing the tight end in the flat. It sails not just behind him, but about 3 yards over his head. And it kind of drops into what looked like a back shoulder throw to it was a flood concept on an out route, and it kind of fell into his lap as he turned around. And depending on how you look at it, it could have been a great throw, but Lamar's right after the throw, they'd go to Lamar and he's laughing. He's like patting this guy on the back and he's laughing. He's like, "Oh my God, we got away with one there. Like, what a bad throw." I said, "Why are you laughing?" And I noticed that the first time I saw the throw, I was like, oh my God. He wasn't even close to completing that pass. And the initial announcer, I don't know who it was, they had Ray Lewis in the booth, and he was like, "What a great throw by Lamar Jackson. He wasn't making that throw last year." And Ray Lewis is like, "Yeah, but I think he was throwing to the other guy." And I was like, "Yeah, I think so too." Just one throw, but, that's my question about Lamar Jackson. He didn't answer it in that game. Carolina at Chicago. Not a whole lot on Carolina's side. I think who's the edge rusher they took? Brian Burns. I think he had 2 sacks. He's going to be a critical piece for that team. They need a number 1 pass rusher. They got a lot of talent on that defense. But good to see him come off to a good start. Elijah Holyfield, lower level prospect, undrafted running back. He ran like a 4.8 40. He looked a lot faster than that in college, but obviously pretty long shot to make the team. But he was a guy a lot of people liked, myself included, before that 40 time. And he comes out and fumbles, I think, on his first carry. Like, he's done. Elijah Holyfield is not making it in the NFL. I think we can write him off. And then the last thing is David Montgomery for the Chicago Bears looks unreal. Like, I ended up kind of, I'm not going to say I was lower on him. I think there was a lot of people that were even lower on him than me. I had him as RB3. I should probably confirm this so I'm not making stuff up. I had him as RB4. I had Josh Jacobs, Darrell Henderson, and Miles Sanders above him, but my impact grade on him was 3rd, behind Darrell Henderson and Josh Jacobs. He looks like a bigger Kareem Hunt, and it was just the preseason against backups, but his vision, his kind of creative running style, his physicality, his desire to kind of run you over, he's going to be a special player. I'm just kind of in on David Montgomery. And this is a Bears team that I've had question marks about offensively because of Mitch Trubisky. But if they can go from Jordan Howard and Tariq Cohen, who are nice players but one-dimensional, right? Cohen, is going to be kind of a trick play or it's going to be a pass. Very rarely are you running Tariq Cohen between the tackles. Jordan Howard was the opposite. No creativity as a runner, really. Can get you 4 yards if you need it, but you know that you're running the ball. If they go from that to having the next Kareem Hunt, to having the next Le'Veon Bell, like a top 5 elite running back, which is what we saw in the short time that we saw David Montgomery was a truly game-changing running back, that can help this team. And normally we don't put a lot of weight in running back, but when you can have a guy like that, it can change things. So he looks like a monster, looks like a great pick for the Bears. We got Tampa Bay at Pittsburgh. This Bucs offense could be good, could be nice, fun to watch. Winston looked pretty sharp. I like what they have with Bruce Arians there. Kind of the comeback story in a way. Similar to the Carson Palmer situation. He threw a deep ball to Brashad Perriman that just looked real nice. Looked really nice. So, Tampa's offense could be fun there. Chris Godwin had a nice touchdown. On the Steelers side, Josh Dobbs looks really fast. He has thrown some nice balls. He looks like he's probably going to win the backup job, but I also thought Rudolph looked good. And was just good vibes for the Steelers in general, for a lot of these young players. I thought both the young quarterbacks played pretty well. James Washington looked like a new man. There's reports that he lost weight, and that was kind of a criticism I had of him. I liked James Washington coming out quite a bit. Obviously, a great landing spot. This team has a great track record of developing those receivers in the second round. But he was a little thick. I said he looked like Jordan Howard, who we just said couldn't move. So he's lost like 15 pounds, and you could see it, and he looked natural catching the football. He had this, it's something that's kind of hard to spot, but it's something that both Thielen and Diggs have. The ability to kind of, when the ball's coming at you, you just kind of jump and hover. It sounds weird, but they kind of jump sideways a little bit so the defender can't really get you. It was a target on the goal line. And he's got really nice, strong hands. That's never been a doubt for him. But he's kind of sat there, hovered, tried to drag his feet, just looked smooth. Looked like something he picked up watching Antonio Brown play, to be honest. Now, I couldn't quite drag the feet, but from a scouting perspective, looked like a really nice, smooth play. He's got Deontay Johnson coming in there, fighting for his job. And I think James Washington's stock went way up from what I saw in this game, which is something Pittsburgh needs because they just traded away one of the best receivers in the NFL. Next, we got Cincinnati and Kansas City. Not a whole lot of takeaways on the Cincinnati side, unfortunately, for me. Kansas City, though, Mecole Hardman, fast as hell. He's going to be just another wrinkle in this offense, paired with the addition of someone we've been talking about a ton. Talk about a sleeper that I hyped up, Darwin Thompson. You couldn't get off Twitter without seeing someone talk about Darwin Thompson. Now, a lot of people liked him. I had him as my 10th running back. I had a third to a fourth round grade on him. He goes in the 6th to Andy Reid, who's the most creative play caller in the NFL, especially around the running back screen game. The additions of Mecole Hardman and Darwin Thompson to this offense, usually when you have an offense that good, you just naturally project some regression. But usually you don't add two pieces like this to a quarterback that is in his second year as a starter. This offense could be Super Bowl good. Now, I don't know about the defense. We'll see how all those pieces come together, but it might not matter. They could average over 40 points a game. It would be just almost impossible to do that, but it could happen. It could seriously happen. This offense could be unstoppable, and I can't wait. Last game to talk about here, Dallas at San Francisco. I'm sorry if I missed a game. It's preseason week 1. I tried to watch as much as I could, guys. I'm sorry if I missed a game. Really am sorry. I think I got them all. Not a whole lot of takeaways here. Dak played. He had a nice off-balance throw kind of deep down the sideline. Now, I'm not going to let one throw that wasn't even completed change my opinion on Dak and that he can't really use the whole field. But Dallas is kind of growing on me. I kind of slept on the whole getting Travis Frederick thing back, I think. Like, that's going to change some things for this team. They have some depth on that offensive line now. I like the Connor McGovern pick. Their receiving core is nice. They got an offseason with Cooper and Dak. Like, they aren't too far removed from being one of the 5 best offenses in the NFL. But that defense, when Dak was a rookie and they were really hard to stop when Zeke was rolling, and they'll find a way to get Zeke back, I'm sure. But this defense, we know this defense can be special. So, like, I'm kind of starting to think I had Dallas a little low in my power rankings. I had them like 12th. Now, they had pretty good health, especially on defense last year, but they're going to compete. I don't know if they're going to be as good as Philly, but that's going to be a really good rivalry this year. So that's the preseason recap. I probably didn't get through it as fast as I wanted to, but I'm still going to make about 20 minutes here for mailbag questions because we got so many of them. So let me just open up here. You can send these into Twitter at TFG_football. Also, if you want to guarantee that you get a question answered, send it to my Instagram, Whitman_Marcus. You can DM it right in there. I will guarantee that I answer it if you do it through that. I'm just making sure I do have one question there from Keegan on Instagram. What are my thoughts on Forrest Lamp? Ooh, I like this question. Love talking about the hog mollies. Can he still become the player he was thought to be, or are the injuries too much to set him back? Well, it was really just the one injury, but he had, we usually say that ACL tears are like ankle sprains these days. Well, he really had a long time recovering from that. He took about 2 years to come back, and he was kind of competing to get on the field last year. Now, the reports out of camp have been great. I believe he started in the preseason. They need better guard play desperately. They had some of the worst offensive line play in the NFL last year. The reason I said they can't win a Super Bowl is one, they don't have a home field advantage, but that offensive line was so bad. So they do need him pretty bad. And I do think he can because we've seen him play at such a high level. He was arguably the best lineman in that class. I mean, it was a weak class, but I think he can. I'm not going to write him off after one injury. If he had another knee injury, then probably. But yeah, I think that there's enough reason to believe that he can get back to being at least a starting caliber guard in the NFL. This is from Brandon Crosby, one of the loyal subscribers of the channel. Any players I expect to have regression? I did actually have one that I thought of today. I was combing through my interior defensive line ratings for the Madden roster, and Arik Armstead actually under the radar had a really good season last year. Former first-round pick, kind of a weird scheme fit at first. Just kind of a weird player in general. He's like 6'7", just under 300 pounds, a bit of a tweener, but he played almost exclusively interior defensive line last year, and he did have 50 pressures. That said, I don't know if he's going to repeat that because I look back, his best games, maybe I should just pull this up real quick to be accurate as I type this in here. His best games, shouldn't take too long, not a whole lot of Arix with an A in this game. Tariq Cohen came up in the NFL, I should say. So he did have 38 pressures in his rookie season, but 24 the year before that, 15 the year before that. He's been injured. He did have crazy pressure rate as a rookie. Forgot how good he was in 2015, but he only had 37 pressures last year, 3 sacks, but he did have a good year. 74.8 PFF grade. So, he's projecting as a plus starter for next year with that grade, with kind of his pedigree. But the 2 years before that were pretty bad. So I guess it depends how you look at it. But what I'm getting at here, I just happen to notice his best games were Denver, Seattle, Tampa Bay, Arizona, Chargers, and Minnesota. When he played Detroit, when he played Kansas City, Green Bay, Chicago, and LA, really bad games. So when he went up against the bad offensive lines, he could not produce. Now, that's going to be pretty similar for a lot of players, but he's a guy that I don't necessarily believe in, especially with guys like Solomon Thomas breathing down his neck, who looked pretty good on the interior for the 49ers. So he's a guy that I could see not getting as many snaps, kind of being more of a rotational player, not repeating 37 pressures, which is pretty good. That's going to be top 30 for pressures. Will you be including a 2020 draft order at the end of my playoff predictions? I will do my playoff predictions on YouTube around week 3 of the preseason, so you'll be able to put the draft order together from that more or less. That was from Josh. This is from Lions. Make sure we answer his question, or he's not going to shut up on Twitter. Alex, what are your expectations for the 2018 first-round QBs this year? Well, we actually talked about Baker and Darnold a lot this year. I think both Baker and Darnold have great years. I think Baker, I don't know if they'll live. I think they'll hover between 8 and 10 wins. I do think that Cleveland is going to be a good football team. They're going to have to put it all together to be a playoff team, and I think the Steelers are really being slept on right now. But I do think Baker has a good year. Sam Darnold, I think is going to take a lot of steps up. He was so young coming out. He's still like 22 years old. He's got so much more talent around them. They just signed Khalil to play center, which was the big hole on that offensive line. I like Robbie Anderson. They got Quincy Enunwa. They got I almost said Jermaine Kearse. They do not have him anymore, which is an upgrade. Jamison Crowder. They just have playmakers on offense. I like the tight end Herndon too. So I think Darnold's going to have a really nice season. He could be, I don't know if it would be a comeback player of the year, but he could be a guy that we're talking about as a top 13, 14 quarterback, kind of like a Carson Wentz-esque second season. Now they don't have the roster that the Eagles had to be a Super Bowl team in their second season, but which team has the biggest drop-off? I feel like we've talked about this. I think it's the Rams. You got Jared Goff, who's a questionable quarterback. They just have holes that have opened up from free agency after being really aggressive the last couple of years. The offensive line's got a lot of questions now. I want to say that hesitantly because I do believe in their ability to develop the two guys that are playing at guard and center. Their names are kind of, I think it's Noteboom at guard at a TCU, and then they're going with I think he's a Big Ten center. Can't think of his name, but I think they can fill that guard and center pretty well. Now, they're losing Sudfeld, who's a really good player, or Saffold, who's a really good left guard, but I think they might be all right at guard. But I don't know if they're going to be a 12, 13-win football team. I think they're a 10-win football team in a much better division this year. Sorry, Alex, I forgot to finish your question. I think Lamar Jackson gets replaced by the end of the year. I don't think he can throw a football. Maybe they convert him to wide receiver. I think Josh Allen kind of does what he did in the second half of last year, where he's going to make a lot of big plays, a lot of exciting stuff. He's going to do a lot of dumb stuff as well. He's going to miss throws on third down. The Bills are one of the more unique teams in the NFL. They're going to have a big play offense that is incredibly inconsistent. They're going to have one of the best defenses in the NFL. They've put better playmakers around Josh Allen, and I think they're actually going to be able to run the ball pretty well. Just because I think that offensive line is going to take a step up. Shady can still play if he can stay healthy, but they've also got depth. They're going to be able to do some things on offense to complement a really good defense. I think Buffalo is a wild card contender. I don't think Josh Allen's going to be in any award conversations, but he's going to be really fun to watch. He's going to create a lot of highlights. If you pick the 10 best quarterback plays of the year, Allen will probably have 2 or 3 of them. We're missing someone. Oh, Rosen. I think, I like Josh Rosen. I don't think he has a chance in Miami. Their offensive line's going to suck. Unless Preston Williams is A.J. Green as a rookie, he's not really going to have any elite receiving threats. I think there's a good chance that Josh Rosen doesn't make it in Miami, and maybe on his third team they can figure it out. Maybe Pittsburgh or New England gets him and turns him into the next Drew Brees. Because he has that kind of upside as a pocket passer, but Miami is not going to make it work, I don't think. Let's see. Garrett asks, what are your thoughts on the strategy on our wide receivers? I don't know who your team is. Professional Goot Fox worshiper. What's Goot Fox? Is that like I actually have no idea. I don't even have a guess what that is. What's my floor and ceiling on the Cardinals' young wide receivers? Also, who would be a good piece for our Corey Peters replacement once he leaves and retires? Thanks, dude. Love the podcast. Thanks, man. I'll whip through it. The floor ceiling on Christian Kirk, Randall Cobb. Floor ceiling on, I'll just do a comparison. How about that? Andy Isabella, Brandon Cooks. I don't like Hakeem Butler very much. My comparison for him is Justin Hunter, who did not work out in the NFL. Just think he's a little stiff. Larry Fitzgerald is a tight end now. Who are we missing? I like the is it Deontay Johnson? I like what he brings to the table. He's such a smart guy. When Kyler gets out of the pocket, I think Deontay Johnson's going to be the guy that knows where to be and is a sure-handed guy, like catching the ball on the sideline. I think he's going to play a lot. I think he's going to be a good player there. I like those wide receivers. They're all going to play too because Cliff uses those in that air raid offense. What's my reaction to the hypnotized Giants fans when their QB plays only one preseason game and then they say the future is bright? You know, you're a fan. You got to have hope. See your quarterback play like that. Everyone's talking trash. Like, from this point on, I'll be cheering for Daniel Jones. I don't want Giants fans to suffer. Do I think they will suffer? Probably. Do I hate everything the Giants did this offseason? Yes, but it's the NFL. You got to have fun. Like, I hope for the Giants fans' sake that Daniel Jones is good. I don't think it's going to happen, but I'm not going to, most NFL fans aren't like diehard fans that dove in and watched 8 Daniel Jones games. He's just the guy that they drafted that everyone says is bad. When he plays well, I'm not going to fault you for getting excited. Now, yes, you do have to take into account it's a preseason game. Don't fool yourself. Don't Blake Bortles your way into thinking the guy's a quality player. Take it with a grain of salt, but if you want to be happy about it, that's fine. Also, how do I feel about the AB helmet situation? I'm just like speechless. That's why I haven't brought it up. Like, I just wonder if he's okay. It's just weird. I don't know. I don't have thoughts about it. Like, what is going on? Change your helmet, dude. You just got paid a ton of guaranteed money. Go show up and play. You just screwed up your feet by frostbite too. Like, just a train wreck in Oakland. What's the biggest joke in the NFL? The Jags quarterback evaluation, the Giants living in 1963, or the Packers having no competent linebacker? Well, if you would have asked me to rank the biggest 3, those are probably what I would say. I'm trying to think if there's any other ones. I almost went to Nick Foles, but that was one of the 3. That's really it. I mean, I think the way that the Jags have evaluated the quarterback position is the biggest joke in the NFL. Because it started with Blaine Gabbert. We forget about that. But then Blake Bortles, like, they triple misevaluated him. They drafted him. They stuck with him too long. And then they extended him. I mean, the Giants last year has been a joke. And then, yeah, the Packers for the last 5 years have systematically ignored an entire position group. It is just weird that they do that. I don't get it. Like, wake up. You need a linebacker. Blake Martinez cannot play. He's a third down tackle backer. You really want Drew Brees targeting Blake Martinez in the playoffs? Get out of here. Do you think Jared Goff could pass Matt Ryan as the best system quarterback? Yeah. Yeah, because right now I do say Matt Ryan is the best system quarterback, ranking him like 12th. And, yeah, I think Jared Goff showed a lot of things. I think, I don't know if his processor's ever going to be great enough and he's not mobile, but Jared Goff's arm is special. Now, usually when you talk about a guy having an elite arm becoming an elite quarterback, they have some mobility to complement that, to create big plays, but he can really open up the field with that arm. So I'll give him a 1% chance on becoming someone I consider elite, but he's got a long way to go in terms of his processor. Any chance of Jacoby Brissett becoming a starter? Well, if Andrew Luck's injury is serious, he could start again this year for the Colts, but Nick Foles is a starting quarterback right now. Jacoby Brissett is a way better quarterback than Nick Foles, so yeah, I'll go with yes. Who would be my starting 3 corners if you had the Eagles group? Well, it'd be Darby or Roby. They got Darby, right? Those two, man, they are going to be the death of me. Bradley Roby and Ronald Darby. Ronald Darby is the Eagles guy. He's my number 1. I love Avonte Maddox. Throwing him in the nickel. And then let me pull up their depth chart real quick because I know who they have, but visualizing it will help. Also, how long are we going here? A little over an hour. We're pretty good. Wouldn't be Sidney Jones. Wouldn't be Cravon LeBlanc. Maybe Scandrick. That's a hole, man. That is a hole. Man. I don't like Mills either. It's probably Mills, though. Am I missing someone? Rasul Douglas. I'm probably letting Scandrick and Douglas hash it out in camp, and I'll go with the better of the 3. That's the only hole in that whole team is that outside corner. Let's see. Who has higher upside, Vander Esch or Smith? Jalen Smith is just so fast. Is Ryan Tannehill talented enough to beat out Mariota? They're so similar. I don't see him impressing enough to beat out Mariota. Now, it could be a situation where, like when the Jags benched Blake Bortles for Cody Kessler, it could be a situation where like Mariota's so bad that they just say we got to try something else. Like this isn't working. I don't think that Mariota has a chance of being as bad as Blake Bortles was though. But like, I don't know if beat out is the right word, but could be the next man up if Mariota just isn't getting the job done. They're so close for me. I think Mariota is one of the 5 worst starters in the NFL, and Tannehill is the clear-cut best backup, but is better than Eli Manning. He's better than Nick Foles. He's better than Lamar Jackson. Like, they are neck and neck for me in terms of who's a better quarterback. Who's my favorite picks for rookie stat leaders? All right, most sacks. Most sacks. I don't think it's going to be Furl. Ed Oliver? Could Ed Oliver get 8.5 sacks on the interior with a good, talented Buffalo front? I think it's either Ed Oliver or Quinnen Williams, because those were the 2 blue chip prospects in that class. So I think one of those 2 for sacks. Picks, I think it's going to be Darnell Savage or Greedy. Greedy's going to get targeted a lot because he's going to be the number 2. But I think Darnell Savage is a super playmaker. And he's a little over-aggressive, too, and it's easier to get picks as a safety. But Darnell Savage, to me, has to be the favorite for interceptions, unless you wanted to go with one of the linebackers. Receiving yards, that's really tough. Oh, man, that's hard for receiving yards. It's a coin flip. Like, I like Deontay Johnson if he can win the job. I like Mecole Hardman, but does he play enough? I do like Paris Campbell a lot. Possible trade partners for a linebacker for Green Bay. Well, if Green Bay wants to wake up and acknowledge that they need a linebacker that's not one of the 4 undrafted guys on their team, I think the Jets, Avery Williamson, is a good one. Because they got Mosley and they probably want to play Blake Cashman. I don't think the Cowboys would trade Sean Lee to the Packers. Maybe they would. Seems unlikely. Why did the Packers let Jake Ryan go? Jacksonville paid him like a 1-year nothing contract. He was the best linebacker on that roster, and they just let him go for nothing. Like, why? And then you didn't sign anyone. They literally just ignore the position. It makes no sense. Daniel Jones question. We already talked about him. If Dallas had a Sean McVay or Andy Reid, would they be one of the best in the league? Or is Dak not good enough to lead a top 5 offense? Well, we saw Alex Smith with what Patrick Mahomes has, and they were still a top 5 offense. So, yes, they need the playmakers too, which Dallas probably does have. They'd be a top 5 offense. They have a ton of talent. I don't think Dak is ever going to be elite, but I think he's better than Mariota. He's got more guts. He's got more oomph to him. He's got more hype, more playmaking ability. I trust Dak a lot more in the fourth quarter than I trust Marcus Mariota. I don't think Dak is terrible. Yeah, he can't really throw the ball deep accurately. He's not going to sit there and process the hell out of you and nickel and dime you, but he can do a little bit of that. I like Dak. I don't hate him. I wouldn't pay him $30 million plus, but maybe I would if I was Dallas because they're kind of desperate. But he's kind of in a weird tier, Dak Prescott, for me. I like this question a lot from Justin Oakes. Great name. What do I think the carry split between Gurley and Darrell Henderson is? I think early in the year, it's going to be mostly Darrell Henderson and Mac Brown, right? And maybe even John Kelly gets involved. I really think Todd Gurley's going to average about 8 carries a game. I think Darrell Henderson's going to average about 12. But as we creep closer and closer to December, to January, we're going to see those Gurley carries start to creep up. And then once the playoffs hit, I think they'll use Gurley 20 carries a game. But I really don't think this is a team that's going to waste their regular season carries with Todd Gurley. It's Mahomes' season. Most surprising vet that gets cut by a team. That's hard. That's really hard. Do the Lions pull a surprise and cut Snacks to clear some cap space? Probably not. Trying to circle through as fast as I can through my brain. The Jets could cut Steve McClendon out of a lack of need. I don't know. I don't have a whole lot of great answers there. How long do I think the Ravens roll with RG3 instead of Lamar? I think you mean Lamar instead of RG3. I think they'll stick out the year with Lamar unless he gets hurt. Why did Dak just turn down $30 million a year? He thinks he's got the leverage. Maybe he does, but I don't know. He's pushing his luck. I don't think anyone's paying him. I mean, maybe he turned it down over the guaranteed money, but I don't think anyone's giving him $100 million guaranteed in the free agency. Maybe they would, but most teams have an Andy Dalton or a Mariota. Why are you gonna make some drastic change for Dak? I think he's better, but I don't think it really changes the scope of your team, and you probably have the other guy for cheap. Anyone have a chance of trading for Melvin Gordon other than the Bucs? Maybe. I think that'd be like a week 3 thing. If the Bucs started 2-0 and they felt that was going to help them get over the edge, then maybe. I don't think that'd be a preseason trade. It would also be a team that only has one running back that suffers an injury. If Mark Ingram got hurt, or someone that thinks they have a chance in the preseason. Who are your top 5 impressive I kind of did that from week 1 of the preseason. Let's see. Let's do 2 more. So many questions. Thank you guys for sending these in. Oh, I like this one from Tyler. Is there a chance the Bears move on from Trubisky in the coming years? So this league is really modern thinking, and the Bears are almost leading the charge in terms of modern thinking organizations. And you win in the CBA by building around a cheap rookie quarterback. And that's what they've done. They got Khalil Mack. They gave him a ton of money. They gave him quarterback money. He's making, I think he's a $25 million cap hit this year, Khalil Mack. It allowed them to get Allen Robinson. Like, the Bears are loaded, but their quarterback's not very good. Now, their quarterback's not making any money. But the second they got to pay Trubisky, like what Dak's asking for, like $30 million, that changes things. That means no Allen Robinson. That means not even getting Clinton Dix, or you got to cut Prince Amukamara. Like, you got to find cap space once you start paying those guys. Now, personally, if the Bears had, I don't know, Josh Rosen or Dwayne Haskins, or who was like the year before that, like Teddy Bridgewater or Ryan Tannehill, does that really change the scope of the Bears season? You still have the same questions you have right now. If anything, some of those other guys might be a better fit because they're not going to turn the ball over. So Ryan Pace, who I have a ton of respect for, I think he's right there, right behind Howie Roseman for the best general manager in the league. If he led the charge on kind of these teams, and Jared Goff is kind of in this conversation too, where teams like, you know what, we're going to roll the dice with another rookie, or we're going to sign a cheap veteran and use that cap space elsewhere because you don't move the needle at quarterback, then I could see them moving on from Trubisky. I think there is a pretty solid chance that happens if he repeats how he played last year, which was not good. Mr. Trubisky was not good last year. If they played that exact same season out again and he played like that, he would have a lot more turnovers than he did. I promise you that. There was way too many drop balls, and there's way too many times where his receivers caught balls that they had no business catching. Let's pick one more here. So many. I wish I could get to all these, but maybe on Thursday's podcast we will. Trying to find my favorite one here. A lot of these are stuff we already talked about. Oh, here's a good one. This will be a good one to end on from LD Ballin, Donnie Harris. Who will be the 6 best defensive players in 6 years? First guy that came to mind was Ed Oliver. I think he is going to be a future elite player. Let's see. Donald, Watt, and Mack will probably, and Cox and Wagner, those guys will all be aged out. Let's see here. I think that Roquan Smith has a good chance of becoming a top 6 defensive player in the league. Jalen Ramsey's still really young. If he was still playing like a really high-end corner, I don't know if he'd be top 6 because usually those are pass rushers. You know, it's hard to say Joey or Nick Bosa because the injury stuff. I mean, Myles Garrett will definitely be top 6. Quinnen Williams has a chance. Kenny Clark has a chance. Chris Jones, both those guys could be really big freaks on the inside. I mean, Denzel Ward's ceiling is incredibly high for the Browns, too. I'm trying to think if there's other linebackers. I mean, any of the guys, like Bush, like either the Bush guys got drafted, or Devin White and Devin Bush. Either of the Devins, that's what I'm thinking of. If either of those guys were like Bobby Wagner types of players, wouldn't really surprise me. I'm not going to bet on that to happen, but those guys have a ton of talent. I got to be forgetting some pass rushers here, right? Maybe not. Most of the great pass rushers are like 26, 27. They're not going to be top 6 players in 6 years. Maybe Eddie Jackson's playing at a really high level in 6 years. It's kind of all the names that come to my mind for the stars of 6 years from now. I'm probably forgetting some guys, but we can end on that. So thanks for watching, guys. If you're on YouTube, hit the like button. Leave a review if you're listening to this on podcast services. And, enjoy watching week 2 of the preseason. We'll have another show, maybe actually on like Friday or Saturday, reacting to some of these games, maybe a little more. I don't know. The schedule's going to vary leading up to the season, but once the season starts, we'll be on a Monday, Thursday, a reactive show on Monday, and more of a future forward predictive looking podcast on Thursday. Cheers, guys. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you for the next one. Peace.